Like,
Yes. Pay attention. It's time.
exactly. Because
This morning I'm going to open our and conduct our refuge with the idea that this has been something that's been on my mind a lot about having been in the waiting room of the doctor's office of Buddhism for 20 some odd years. And I literally have this exact experience literally with my guru. So I'll just give you it as a metaphor, but just know that this is from firsthand. This happened to me. So my kind Lama brought me to the doctor's office, and I went in and visited with the doctor. The doctor prescribed medication. I got the medication. Then I went back and I never took the medication. And because my arrogance being what it is, I thought, oh, how could this doctor in India know anything that would be helpful to me? Actually, it was almost the opposite of what you're maybe assuming. I wanted to go to the Tibetan medical clinic, and Geshe Drachma instead took me to the allopathic Western medicine hospital. I didn't want pop medicine. I wanted the the Tibetan medicine for what was going on. So now here's the thing. So we take refuge. So I learned, and this is a lesson that keeps burning at my whatever arrogance, especially in relation to the teachings and your teachers. That when we take refuge, in effect, we are the more successful we are with the transformation of ourselves. It is dependent on the level of willingness to take the medicine of the Dharma that our teachers give us. And so to get ourselves out of the waiting room of our Buddhist practice into the office, get the prescription, this is what the teachings are, and then actually go home and take the medicine. And I don't know. I'm just gonna say that we can be in the waiting room for many, many years, kind of checking out, thinking it sounds great. We love all the little diplomas on the walls and the magazines on the little coffee table and the little interesting infomercial type brochures that the pharmaceutical companies leave behind. And all that's very enjoyable. But it is only in the actual following the advice of the doctor that we'll see the workings of the medicine of Dharma, which anyway.
That's a good analogy.
It's very, I'll just say on a personal level, it is both shocking and painful for me to see how my arrogance prevents me from fully taking the medicine in many, many ways every day. But, I just share that we're going to say these refuge prayers and just wanted to, that particular thing about me has been on my mind, and I figure it's pretty much a common experience. At some level, we're all just in the waiting room thinking that the doctor's neat and we like his credentials and he's got a nice stethoscope and
which historically was given to him by the pharmaceutical industry
yeah.
and the doctor's bag as well. So
there you go. All right. With that all in mind, and I kind of just take a moment to generate yourself in a vast waiting room with countless sentient beings, and you have the luck of having the next appointment with the doctor. And just have the attitude that you are so eager to take the medicine that this doctor is about to recommend to you in the form of the teachings. So kind of generate a recollection of your own reason for wanting to take this medicine, whatever's been happening to you in your life that causes you to seek medicine. to seek this Buddhist path. And find a way to really feel enthusiastic about, yeah, I'm going to do it. Take this refuge. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by listening to teachings and the other paramitas. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, Dharma, and Sangha through the positive potential I create by listening to teachings and the other paramitas. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by listening to teachings and the other paramitas. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And just take a moment to reflect on those 4 thoughts. And thinking, visualize yourself in a position to help others achieve these states that you are a little bit ahead of the path on some of your fellow travelers, and you're helping others to achieve these states. That's you. And then we'll do the visualization of a mandala, which is our offering to the board of medical examiners known as the Buddhist lineage, and all of the doctors and nurses in the lineage and the beautiful teachers that we have been all blessed to know in our lifetime. Maybe we've only read their book, maybe we've met them, but whatever it is, they're there and they're willing to dispense the Dharma to us. And so the 7-limb offering is basically these thoughts. You need to meditate on these thoughts to realize what you're doing is describing your commitment to take the medicine in the ways that it shows up in our lives. Sorry, I'm skipping around here. Let's do the 7-limb offering before the mandala. My apologies. With the stuff I just said a minute ago. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. Prostration. Humility. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. And in a sense, the offering is just nothing more than your willingness to present yourself for transformation. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless times, so admitting that you have changes to be made. And you rejoice in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings. So developing some encouragement to see that others can change, and therefore you can change as well. You're enthused about this and encouraged. Rejoicing in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings, and please remain until samsara ends. So here we're talking, in a sense, our samsara. We're not talking about some external place. We're talking about the samsara that we keep generating within ourselves. We're asking this guru before us to please remain in our mental continuum, in our awareness, until this samsara ends. And furthermore, to present in a form that I can see and turn the wheel of Dharma. Turn the wheel of Dharma. And then dedicating all of this to not only your own enlightenment, but for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. Okay, now in Tibetan, we'll chant the mandala offering. And Christopher, I tend to not remember the new melody that you took on from Venerable Robina. So when I go astray, to sing it with, take the lead. Saji ki joking meito Tram ri raving shi ni de kien di Sang Jing Du Mi Te U War Gi Dro Nam Da Shing La Chu Pa Shou. Now visualizing that supercharged, beautiful room, and then offering it to the merit field. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nilya Taryami. I think the key thing there in the mandala offering is to do the visualization with it. That we're meant to be visualizing ourselves purified, our environment is purified, all the beings in the environment, all the activities in the environment. And ultimately, that's our offering in the sense that, we're committing to taking the medicine and
Yeah.
achieving that.
And then the wish is that all beings can experience that kind of purified state, and experience that and enjoy that. Okay. Welcome, everybody. As many of you know, Geshe Nima has started the ball rolling in terms of bringing this Dharma out to younger people. And specifically, members of our group are now talking with various colleges, universities. Kavita and I are talking with the Alamo College District, and having a way of Geshe Nima, when he comes in 2027, to go into these particular universities, colleges, speak with students, and then his idea is that when he leaves, we will continue on. He's designed a year-long course, which covers all of the bases of Mahayana Buddhism, and that we will continue with that. So in that spirit, I'm starting to change a little bit the way we will be doing our classes, and there will be periods where, after talk about what the topic is, then there are questions for discussion to sort of bring that into a more, so that we get thinking about it, and it's not just like a lecture that you're listening to, because that's not going to work in a university.
Ryans you didn't mention this, the two Ryans are also pursuing at their various university connections. They're both university people. But an interesting thing kind of has emerged that we kind of knew, but we had a conversation with Teresa, who's on our board, who's part of that work group. And I knew that her area was instructional design, but I didn't really know what that meant. And then when I started hearing, I knew she has like highfalutin credentials at Ivy League colleges. But then she starts talking the other day about how that translates to what we're doing. And so I think I just mentioned that Teresa's comments the other day when she and I were chatting, you guys are on the front line, so you're aware of stuff that Christopher perhaps isn't. But anyway, it's sort of informing, I think, a little bit, and she's going to, continue part of the discussion on that as we. But it's kind of cool the way AI is coming into this in a positive way.
It's useful, actually. It's quite useful.
It can be, yeah.
It can be. It depends on what you, the prompts that you give, and in terms of Buddhism, you have. one has to have studied Buddhism for a long time to know what's correct and what's incorrect, so that you can keep steering AI to go to the right websites to find the right information, right? But it's very useful. So that's how I see my job in all of this, is just begin developing a way of presenting this that is more, that would work within a classroom environment where it's just not going to reach anybody just talking like a lecture. So, and AI has these wonderful prompts for it. So
Luckily, we're a chatty group anyway.
we are a chatty group. It's going to work. So I want to do a recap of what we.
Has those, showstopper questions.
Who does?
Dr. Herman.
Dr. Herman. Dr. Herman with his showstopper questions is very
I
important.
know it. I mean that I meant that in a positive way. I realized the tone of voice wasn't. But
They do start the conversation, that's true.
Hey,
They're real.
let me tell you from this semester's experience, there's nothing worse than getting all excited and asking a question to the group and then having everybody just sit there. And
Sit there, right? I mean, right.
I'd be like, I thought that was an exciting question.
Right.
It was nothing.
Yeah,
So,
it may take
you
some
don't ask
prompting.
those.
No, it may take some prompting. But once the discussion gets going, I think then people
Yeah.
jump
And
in.
I'd say 15% of your grade is based upon classroom participation.
Yeah, that's
So
I
you're all
thought that you too.
So
Yeah.
how do you start your day?
So just heads up to everybody here live and here on Zoom that there are going to be a couple of parts of this whole what we call it class today that is about group discussion.
do you remember
Not to make you feel.
I don't know if you understand. Lamatis Pasang would ask questions, but it would be always like, what are the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths?
Yeah, right.
It was more like a test.
Oh, no. It
It was more like a test.
But that was something I noticed about Geshe-Nima right away in the teepee is he would, and I had other teachers do that, but I hadn't seen us encounter it a lot where in the middle of a teaching he'd just stop and go, and what was the and he'd look at somebody in particular usually and be like,
Why me?
yeah, and he'd clam up, can't remember.
Anyway, I'm going to do a brief recap of what we discussed last time, which was I had entitled it "Changing Our Fixed View." And what we looked at was the ordinary way that we see the world, of treating people, things, and experiences as if they were solid and fixed. And that's mistaken, and it leads to suffering. Lama Yeshe's meditation on the nature of consciousness guided us to notice how even pain and pleasure can be experienced as spacious, showing that our concrete perceptions are not as fixed as they seem. Or they're actually not fixed as they seem, our concrete perception. So some of the key points were, it had to do with mere designation, which is going to be part of this talk as well. Much suffering arises from clinging to people, nations, and ourselves as if everything self existed independently with fixed, unchanging identities. This rigid view fuels anger, division, and cycles of harm and suffering. There were three. Now, this is an important point. This is the kind of point that a Dharma teacher or a Lama would test you on. There are three criteria for conventional existence. The I exists conventionally because, one, people commonly recognize and interact with I, me, somebody else's self, what we see as a self. That's the first one. It's commonly recognized and interacted with. The second criteria for conventional existence is, two, it holds up under ordinary perception and commonly and functions as it's expected. It holds up under ordinary perception and functions as it's expected. So the I, the me, the self, holds up under ordinary perception and it functions the way we expect it to. Then the third criteria for conventional existence is that a deeper analysis of this only refutes an inherently existing self not the everyday functional sense of a person. Thus, the I exists in shared experience, even though it's empty of any inherently fixed existence. So we'll probably revisit that because it's an important thing, but it's going to be reinforced in today's session. Then we talked about the middle way. The middle way avoids both extremes of permanence, thinking things have a fixed inherent existence, and nihilism, thinking that nothing exists or nothing matters. So there's a middle way between those two. And that's what we're talking about. That's the Prasangika view. There's a middle way between, oh God, nothing exists or everything exists the way it appears. Instead, all things exist dependently through causes, conditions, and shared concepts. And we'll go more into that. Then we talked about wisdom and compassion together, like the two wings of the bird. And a correct understanding of emptiness frees us from clinging, and it makes our life actually lighter. Compassion grows naturally when we realize that neither ourselves nor others are fixed in being who they are. We are all shaped by changing conditions. Like the two wings of a bird, wisdom and compassion support each other in leading us to freedom from suffering, peace, happiness. And as a summary of last week, emptiness does not make life meaningless. It makes it workable. Emptiness makes life workable, an understanding of emptiness. By loosening our fixed views, we can relate to ourselves with openness, to others with patience, and to both suffering and happiness with a sense of balance. This shift in perception lays the foundation for freedom, the strength of resilience, and compassion in daily life. So today's topic, it's traditionally called the suffering of persons, or the suffering, or no, the selflessness of persons, the selflessness of the person, which is what I initially titled this topic. But I was thinking, all right, wait a minute. If I was going to do this for a university age group, that would just be like, that means nothing to me. So I thought, all right, really, another way of saying it is, why do I exist? Or how do I exist? Not why, how? How do I exist?
Why is another good question?
Why is a good question, but right now we're going to talk about how do I exist? And we're going to start with
I know we didn't ask for comments on their summary,
this
but
fine.
I'm gonna give you one anyway.
Okay.
What emptiness, when I think about the fact that everything is existing within the reality of emptiness as a dependent arising, for me, it's like the opposite of nihilism. It's like then everything I think, say, and do takes on even more extraordinary importance, in the sense that that's where all of my experience that seems to be out there is coming from, is me. You know, I'm half of the dependent arising.
That's right. That's right. You know what it's like is it's like when we look in a mirror, you know, and we see the reflection in the mirror, and we think, oh, that is who I am. That's the way it is. But if we don't like the reflection we see, right? It's not. We don't clean the mirror. Cleaning the mirror is not going to do anything. We have to change the thing that's being reflected. So when we're talking about emptiness or non-duality, this is getting into non-duality. Everything we see, everything that appears to us is a reflection of our state of consciousness. It's a reflection of our state of consciousness. So if what's appearing to us seems wrong or mistaken, it's not like we have to clean it up on the mirror, on the reflection. We don't have to clean it up out there. We clean it up within ourselves, and then everything is going to appear differently to us because we've cleaned up our own mind. That's a profound concept. And right now it's just a concept, but like I say, I think we need to get more and more familiar with this idea of non-duality. So I thought the analogy of a mirror works pretty well. The mirror is reflecting what actually is in are the state of our mind.
And the mirror is our mind.
The mirror is our mind. Right. And that's speaking directly to what when Buddhism's talking about non-duality. Doesn't mean we're not interconnected and interdependent, but we're all doing the same thing. So we have to find the common ground. So now, how do I exist? And we're going to get into something that we've really not talked much about in Buddhism. It's called the six constituents and how the I relates to the six constituents. In Buddhism, everything in the universe, including the body and mind, can be described in terms of six basic elements or constituents. Constituents is a better word because elements conjures up other scientific principles. As a way to talk about these constituents in shorthand, they're often referred, or they're called earth, water, fire, air, space, and consciousness. Earth, water, fire, air, space, and consciousness. So I'm just going to go through these in shorthand here and to get an idea, and then we're going to go more into detail about these constituents. So what's called earth is hardness and softness, solid stuff, hardness and softness. Water, fluidity and cohesion, what flows and holds things together. Fire, heat and cold, or energy and temperature. Air, movement and vibration, or motion, breath, and activity. Space, the openness that allows everything to exist. And consciousness, awareness, thoughts, emotions, and mental processes. So you can see it's not just like saying earth, water, fire, air, space, consciousness. We really have to see what it's talking about and why it's saying, Buddhism saying, everything in the universe can be described in terms of these six constituencies. So here's the verse in the text that is talking about this. Just as a person is not real due to being a composite of six constituents, so each of the constituents also is not real due to being a composite. So what is the I in relation to these constituents? We usually think of I, me and you or the person as something real and solid, just like we talked about last time. But if you look for I in the body, you'll only find physical parts. If you look in the mind for the I, you'll only find passing thoughts and feelings. If you look at both together, that's just still parts, mind and body, not a separate and distinct I. Yet we still say the I exists because we give that combination of body and mind the label I or me or you. Without that designation, there is no independent I or person hiding somewhere inside the aggregates or the constituents. Constituents are different than the aggregates, constituents. So think about yourself. You're not just one solid independent being. You're made up of the six constituents. But even those constituents aren't ultimately real on their own because each of them is also made up of smaller parts. If something were truly real on its own, we should be able to locate it directly, definitively. But when we examine carefully, a person, the me or the I, can't be found inside the six constituents as the collection of them or separate from them. This doesn't mean the I doesn't exist. It means it exists in a dependent way on those constituents and on the way our mind designates or labels them, I, me, or person. In philosophical terms, the I doesn't exist inherently. but rather as something conceptually designated on the basis of parts. So now Nagarjuna breaks down the 6 constituents, and he uses the I, he applies the I to the 6 basic constituents themselves. None of them exist on their own, these constituents. They only exist in dependence on their parts and the way we conceptually label them. So this gets into things we normally don't actually think about, but if we think about it, we need to apply some logic here. So starting with the first constituent, which is, shorthand label is earth. It's referring to hardness and softness. When you touch something solid, you say it's hard. And when it bends or gives way, you say it's soft. But if you look closer, there's no actual hardness or softness inside the object. It's just atoms arranged in a certain way. The quality we call hardness or softness is a label we give to how matter either resists or
Gives away.
yields to pressure. Yeah. The hard soft quality exists as such only because we describe it that way. Hardness and softness exist because our mind notices a recurring pattern in matter's behavior and names it. Without that conceptual label, there's no fixed thing called hardness or softness waiting to be found.
I mean, this would be the analysis, like if you look at a tree, we touch the tree and it does not yield. So we say that's a solid tree.
Usually it doesn't yield. Depends on how young it is.
Well, I just mean in general.
Yeah.
I mean, we encounter or a coffee cup.
Mhm.
This is what it's talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
And that we call it hard or soft. It's a label for how the
Well, we
atoms
just
are.
call, I mean, the reason we say there's a coffee cup there is because in this case, and through our framework, it's there because it does not yield. If I could put my hand, then I would say that there's
That's not a coffee cup.
imaginary
Right.
coffee cup there, and it wouldn't be a coffee cup.
Right.
I mean, the reason we identify the things is
Mhm.
this non-yielding.
Yeah, and we
quality.
base our identification on their function, how they function for us.
Right. I mean, the reason we know that something's there is there's an unyielding something.
Right. Right. But it
this, that, an animal, a dog. a
But it
rock.
doesn't always mean within our particular experience, in our particular experience, I should say, this, a hard surface will not yield to my hand. But within somebody else's experience, say some of these highly developed
Yeah.
Tibetan yogis or Buddhist yogis or Indian yogis, who they talk about walking through walls. Well, that's certainly something is going on there that's different. Now, whether you believe that or not,
So you
Well,
but they talk about it.
like with the cup yielding and not yielding, it's still a product of its own dependent origination.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's where I get. I mean, it's nice and okay, but what is this for?
Yeah, well,
Because I mean the verbiage, because I'm still on everything is dependent on its causes and conditions.
I think all this
You know.
other analysis is to kind of point out that we have a conceptual frame. In
Right.
addition, we have this other storyline always pushing out. It's
Yeah.
a cup, it's a laptop, it's a this, it's a that. They're nice, they're mean. They
Mhm.
said this. You
Mhm.
know,
Okay.
it tastes good, it tastes
Yeah.
bad, blah blah. I
Yeah.
think it's just because yes, everything's a dependent arising, and on top of that, then we add our own opinion about it. So not only is
Okay,
it's
yeah.
dependent arising, we call a cup
Yeah.
a cup, then we all have different opinions about it, and that's
Oh yeah.
and we
I think that's
only,
why it
a cup
matters.
exists as a cup for us only because we label it as such.
Yeah,
The cup doesn't
absolutely.
exist as a cup for a fly.
It's like I say, this is a table for me, but for cockroach, I mean, for termites,
Well,
it's
you
dinner.
see, you
It's not a
establish
table.
this.
Right.
This is
Right.
but where it gets maybe more interesting is is it a nice, good table or a bad table?
Well, we'll
Is
never
it a
get into
nice
that.
table
But
Right.
I think also
Ugly table.
well,
But that's subjective to your, how you
That's the
see
whole
it.
point,
Yeah.
that's the story.
Okay, well then that's, yeah,
Yeah,
there was a
kind of a hard way to get around it.
meditation I was given once where to basically to take a rock, hold it, and do this meditation about on hardness.
Mhm.
And it's from Kedrop J, one of J Tsongkhapa's
Mhm.
students. And to contemplate, one, just to contemplate how your mind is projecting the quality of hardness onto the rock. And that it's not inherent in the rock, that it's a dependent. In other words, if you had different karmic seeds, I mean, this is my understanding of it. If you could see that rock as soft, you could feel it as soft. It's
Mhm.
that it's not. There's not now. And there are certainly stories where that get into that kind of stuff, but at a more simple level, it's just literally just sit there seeing the shape and and trying to catch your mind projecting it, the hardness, and seeing that the hardness is an experience of your mind is kind of the first step of like, that you're okay, I'm sensing hardness here. Where is that coming from? And it's not, I mean, as far as I could get with it, it's not so much coming from the rock as it's coming from some kind of interaction between whatever it is out there and me and my mind.
Right.
And that's
Wow,
kind of like,
yeah.
right? Like,
So are you thinking of it got hard because of the fire and everything else that it took to melt it down?
well, yeah, I mean, you could go there, but it's more, I think the focus of it is to watching your mind and how your mind is experiencing it in a certain way, right? And catching yourself experiencing it and it's, I think you're going after the interdependent nature so that it's not just out there and it's hard. It's hard because there's something about I'm playing some role in it.
That's right.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It does.
yeah.
Say for instance,
I'll try to find that and send
say
it.
for
Just a
instance-
little one-page thing that
there are all kinds of frequencies
yeah,
that things can exist at.
yeah,
Say we existed at the frequency of Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
yeah.
We could go right through a rock. We could go through a stone
Right.
wall. We could go through steel. There's no inherent hardness or softness for that particular. It's exactly what you're saying. It depends on the one of the one how the two things come together. So if we existed at the frequency of Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
we could actually travel through anything, pretty much, except
I can see Claudia's thought, she's thinking about whether or not she's gonna say what she's thinking.
No, I was actually, so should we not think of this in terms of like the physics things about matter, like water is liquid, air is gas, and then the solid is just a solid. So Earth is, or the solids. I mean, that what reminds me of Earth, at least Earth, water, and air.
I know, and that's I think this is describing the constituents are describing it in a little different way than the classic, elements. So
Well, I mean, they're not elements, they're states of matter.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
talking about gases, liquids, and they're all matter.
right,
She's talking about that other way of looking at.
yeah.
And then the other question I have, how does time fit into the whole thing?
We haven't got there yet, Claude.
Okay.
And get back to us on the answer to that.
Well, no, we will get, we
All right,
will
can
kind of get
tackle
to that.
that, yeah.
We will get to that. Okay.
We'll get Claudia to get.
All right,
back to that question.
But that comes into when we get to the movement and vibration part, the air part. It doesn't address time exactly, but you can see how it's related. Okay, so the second one is fluidity and cohesion, which is labeled water. Water flows and has cohesive and adhesive properties. Look it up. It does. I mean,
We know.
yeah. So we call it fluid or say it has cohesion. But those are not built-in things you can point to. They're just the way molecules move and bond. When we notice that pattern, we name it fluidity or cohesion. Without that label, there is no separate inherent thing called fluidity or cohesion waiting to be found in the water. All right, third, what's called heat and cold, labeled as fire. We talk about something being hot or cold, but those are just labels for how energy interacts with our senses. Heat is molecules moving faster, cold is molecules moving slower. The molecules themselves can be broken down into atoms and subatomic particles. You cannot find heat as a thing on its own. It's just a way of describing energy in motion. Fourth, movement and vibration, which is labeled air. When something shifts, we say it's moving. When it shakes, we say it's vibrating. But in any single instant, there is no movement or vibration, just the object in that position. Movement only appears when we connect many positions across time and give it a label. Vibration is the same. Tiny back and forth changes that our mind strings together into a pattern. Without the label, there's no independent movement or vibration. This is actually quite easy for us to see if we take, say, a video on YouTube and we pause it. Well, the movement all of a sudden we stopped and we see a single frame. Well, that's exactly how this movement occurs. It can be broken down into instants, and each one of those instants is a separate thing. But the way it appears to us, it's all smooshed together, and we call it movement. And movement exists because we label it that way. And because it appears to us that way. Like Brian was saying, the particular vehicle for experience that we have, that's the way it appears to us. If we were a different kind of being that was able to see everything slowed way down, it wouldn't appear to us that way. And that maybe addresses time too, the passage of time. I don't know. That's just, I brought that up because Claudia mentioned it. All right, I'll go to the last two. All right, the fifth constituent is the absence of obstacles, which is called space. We say space exists as the area things occupy. But if you search for space itself, separate from the objects and the boundaries we use to define space, what do you actually find? Space isn't a thing on its own. It's just the absence of obstacles, the openness where things can appear. Calling it space is our way of organizing that absence, not something inherently real by itself. And the sixth one is awareness, mental activity, what we label consciousness. We all feel like awareness is solid and obvious. It's the stream of thoughts and feelings and perceptions that is happening right now with each one of us. But if you try to find a single, unchanging awareness, you won't. What we call consciousness is just a flow of constantly shifting, ever-present moments of experience. We name that flow mind or awareness, but the label is the glue that holds that idea together. All right, so based on this, well, Nagarjuna goes on, and says the logic works for anything. This logic works for anything. And I think we've even discussed this. A phone isn't just a screen, its battery, or its software. It's the way all those parts come together. And it only exists as a phone because that's what we call it. I think I said last week, a fly does not call that thing a phone. It's not a phone to a fly. It doesn't even exist
And
that way.
it exists as a phone because someone thought of the concept of a phone and then they invented all the parts and pieces to make a phone, and then we all agreed, yeah, we'll call it a phone.
We could
But
say
it's
that.
just because someone had an idea that such a device would be useful.
We could say that about anything.
Mhm.
And we would not know perhaps what we were actually looking at, just like the fly. We
So
would not
I
call
wanna
it.
just say that what I'm trying to get at is the phone does not merely exist because it's merely labeled. It's an idea that
It exists as a phone
it's an idea.
because it's
Yeah,
labeled
the
as a
name
phone.
phone is a mere label to the idea and the
However, just like Don said, we this hard thing, we label and give it a function as table,
I know.
but to somebody else, it's dinner.
Yeah,
A termite.
this is a horn to us.
Yeah.
Right?
That's not what it is.
That's your stick,
to Molly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Molly does go, oh, horn, and label it
Right.
a horn.
Exactly.
Mine doesn't do that.
poor thing.
You know, no.
Molly labels it as
It's something yummy to chew.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really important that we, like you're doing, Brian, that we take ourselves out of the aggregates that we are and imagine that we're something else. And what is it? What is it to us? We will label it something else, and it will mean something else
I
to
know,
us.
when I do that though, for me, that kind of becomes, well, okay, so big deal. So yes, every kind of being has their own interaction with things, but I find it important to add, this is a cup, we merely label it a cup, but somebody had the idea
That's
based
right.
on everything else, that it would be a good idea to have some kind of way to contain
A
stuff
bowl of
you're gonna
liquid.
drink.
Right.
That to me is more important than it's merely labeled cup.
Right. But that does
See,
not
yeah.
make it an inherently existing cup.
Does it?
Right.
No, it doesn't.
It comes out of an
And it
idea.
should.
It comes out of a concept.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. And then it's working with these 6 constituents to bring into some kind of form an idea that we have. It doesn't exist without the idea inherently.
You're both right. They're just, they're two parts of the process.
Mhm.
That's all. Right.
Okay, so now, well, I have some group discussion questions. Like we've been discussing
Do
anyway.
you dare?
No, I do dare. We don't have to do all of it. We'll just see how far we go with, all right. So here's a topic of labels versus reality. Okay. If I, me, or you is just a label on body and mind, how does that affect the way we see ourselves and others? If I, me, and you is just a label on the body and mind, how does that affect the way we see ourselves and others? If we take that on board.
I mean, okay, so if I would see others and everybody else as, oh, kind of like a miracle that we even function, that all this stuff came together. You know, I mean, it's like a guitar. I mean, it's got a tree and it's got cat gut, came from a cat. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of things that make it the guitar, and there's all kinds of things that make you you.
And there's all kinds of things that make the tree and the cat gut
Yeah,
and on and on and on.
So my question is, when you're thinking about that, like in meditation, what do you do with that? I mean, I do get the concept that everything is, again, from, you know, it's dependent origination for everything.
Right.
You know, we have our karma, you know, comes through our parents. I mean, it follows, and then we become this body that I would say I consider it a miracle, you know, or something. It
Okay, go ahead.
Well, yeah, maybe this will help, I think. So your question, say the question again. I had a,
If I, me, or you
yeah,
is just a label on body and mind,
yeah.
how does that affect the way we see ourselves and others?
Okay, so the more I catch myself or someone catches themselves in the process of making those labels, I think, which is what you're trying through meditation essentially to catch, is like, okay, first thing that's going to happen, or that I think can happen, is a kind of loosening of boundaries. So people that you see as close to you, as cool, as meaningful, and people that you don't like and you hate, that starts to get a little looser.
Yeah.
Like because those are you seeing that those are labels, so that you start to get a sense that well, okay, another good example. I don't know how many of you have had a child, but when you have a child, like your sense of yourself goes out. Like they are a part of you now in a way, which is hard to describe. But so I think, and that's a labeling thing. That's because you're labeling now them as a part of you almost. It's not that they, I mean, yeah, biologically we could go, they are literally, but that's not how it feels. It's you would do anything to them. They become as important as you in many ways. Um, and I think when you notice that you're labeling it, people that you might otherwise see as other and label as other start to potentially, you realize there's another way to label them as part of your
Right.
family, as part of that. Like, so your importance can decline, your self-centeredness can decline a little, I think.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes
Okay.
sense. You know, I also think, so like you're saying, we will often project a label onto somebody that I don't like them for
Yeah.
that particular reason. But once we realize, wait a minute, that's my label for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I can change that.
Yeah.
I can see them in a completely different way if I choose to.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, why do we not choose to?
Yeah, and it doesn't, it's not as simple as just, oh, I'm going to see them that way now, or I'm going to see this rock as water now.
Right.
Like it doesn't work that way
Right.
because we're being forced to see it because of our karma, but we can start to plant those seeds through the practices and through, yeah, you start with little,
Yeah.
like, okay, intentional, which is what karma is, intentional mental action.
So after that, is there a right answer to that question? Is there a right answer to that question?
No, these are just questions for
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, that's what I'm, that's
No,
what
these
I'm.
are just discussion.
Yeah.
I would
It's
like
not a
to
test.
say my reaction to that question was immediately to like sort of look at everybody in the room and realize that everybody is sitting there thinking of themselves as I and looking at me and saying you, and that freaks me out. I'm gonna share that.
Yeah.
Well, again, that's sort of like the mirror analogy.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can't take it any further than that.
Right. Right.
I don't.
Well, it seems to me that the reason that, you know, we think of ourselves as individuals, the I, me, you are separate, is because, you know, our makeup as a human species or as a species has forced us to act in that way. We haven't been exposed globally now to, Buddhist thought that that's not ultimate reality. And we continue to perpetuate that, we habituate that, and so we just say, we view it that way because everybody before us has viewed it that way, and everybody, and we view it. So there's a lot of, programming that's gone into creating how we think about things and how we view things. And without getting the alternative explanation from some other place, you're going to just continue to perpetuate what you're educated and what you're told.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I think if you have a Buddhist perspective, you say, well, the I, me, you, they are mere labels, and it doesn't affect how I view anybody else because everything is interdependent, everything is dependent origination, and everybody is everything and every body is interactive and not separate, distinct, and non-changing. So you can see them as mere labels that exist in the conventional way that people describe it, but in the ultimate way, that's not how things truly exist. I don't know if that's.
Then I guess the question would be then how can that change the way our our emotional reaction is to others?
I think the idea is if you're all interrelated and everything's independent, and you know, you want to be, you want to lessen your own suffering, then by lessening others people's suffering, you lessen your own suffering.
That's brilliant, really. Really. I mean, that's so logical, right?
So then it could be was right.
Yeah, and when
At the
that
beginning, when she said I had these, what did you say,
Yeah.
conversation stopping or something?
exactly.
What were you gonna say?
That's it.
Ryan too?
No, just yeah. Or that jerk that cut you off in traffic is an awful person, and you realize
Yeah.
I'm that a lot of that. You know, you begin to see a bigger web of okay, this happened. You don't know why. I remember somebody saying this when I worked at the medical center that to think try to pull back a little your perspective of like somebody cuts you off. Well, you're at the medical center. It's possible that that person is on their way to chemo. How does that
Yeah.
change? How does your knowledge of that change your emotional reaction and it does hugely. And it's like, oh, well, if it's that dependent on my label and how I'm and my perspective, then I need to work on expanding and
Yeah.
seeing reality that way because that could really profoundly change how I interact with the world.
I mean, both your
Right?
points,
Like-
what triggers in my mind is, the more other-centered we become,
Yeah.
the more happy we become,
Yeah.
and the more happy others become. Because we're not going, why is that jerk cutting me off? Right. We're other-centered, we go, wow, they must have a reason.
There's
It could be important.
experience that I've had. I'm sure we've all had this experience driving where unknowingly we cut someone off.
I've been that jerk.
I'm just gonna say that when I noticed that, I went, I guess that's mostly what's happening here. So why would I get upset if somebody in that one instant happened to be paying attention to something, something else?
Yeah.
Just, I mean, I've done it.
Yeah.
Of course, we all try not to do it. But I don't think the majority of the things, and then to escalate it and to call someone a name
Yeah.
and get angry because why, Because a mosquito was flying around in their car and they didn't know it and suddenly they went like this and there you were, or they just had a small blind spot, how those, I mean, it's just like, sure as hell wasn't that they were going like, let me see if I can piss off Brian Bales and cut
Right,
him off here on
right.
410.
Yeah. Well, that anger that you're talking about that's coming out of us, if you go back to that mirror analogy, that is if we actually get that we are just projecting that out onto somebody, well, then we're going, damn, I don't want to be this angry. This is me. This is
Isn't that
me
wild?
expressing this. I'm seeing myself. I'm seeing my own mind when I say that asshole. That's my own mind, not theirs.
Robina is very
yeah.
good about pointing that out.
Yeah.
A lot.
And so
Regularly.
a lot regularly.
No, I mean it also too.
In a very
obviously,
helpful
just
way.
her teaching as well, not just in her behavior.
No, she's a wonderful, wonderful teacher.
Yeah.
She really is.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, shall we go to another topic? Because we have one on science and philosophy, which Claudia might chime in on.
He's waiting to formulate her reaction.
All right.
And Kate,
Physics describes matter as particles and energy fields. How does that connect with the Buddhist idea that things don't inherently exist? I'll read it again.
Yes.
Physics describes matter as particles and energy fields. How does that connect with the Buddhist idea that things don't inherently exist?
I mean, physics does describe the macroscopic properties as we perceive them. They're not, I mean, there are ways to use microscopic descriptions to sort of see what the macroscopic descriptions are that we have, like solid, gas, and fluids. But I mean, it's not that they're sort of absolutely real. I mean, they depend on our perceptions. I mean, physics sort of acknowledges that too.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, that is so interesting. This is where I think, physics is helping so much, really, in understanding what Buddhism is talking about. It takes it out of just woo, this doesn't make sense, this is magic, to something that scientists are now observing, you know? And I think that's really, really helpful. Yeah. Any more on that?
Well, just
Isn't it also inherently constantly changing?
Yeah, so how can it be inherent, right? Because inherent means it's fixed. It's fixed that way. That we have to actually understand what is meant by inherent existence. It means it's this inherent fixed existence from its own side, which would mean it actually can't really connect with other things. But the ego kind of looks at everything that way. That's what they say. The problem of all of this samsaric experience we're having, is arising out of that fixed view. It's what we talked about last week. So yeah, you're right. I mean, everything is continually transforming and changing and moving and adjusting, and yeah. It's not fixed. It's not inherent. Yeah. And plus, as physics is saying, depending on who the observer is, it is seen in a different way. It appears in a different way. And that's important for us to recognize. Yeah.
somebody once made a comment in a teaching of, we were talking about me. I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but made the point of, you don't know what His Holiness Dalai Lama sees when he looks in the mirror.
Right.
He may see 16-year-old Manjushri, we see this
Yeah.
person getting older, and
Right.
I don't know why. I keep coming back to this. Like, I really like that observation.
It's an interesting.
We don't know.
I've heard somebody saying that, like there are
We don't know.
monks that look at him and don't they see?
They see other.
Yeah.
And I've heard uh, instances during empowerments and things like that where people experience seeing things that that not everyone there saw. I don't know. I think that is interesting and entirely plausible, given that, I mean, there is a conventional reality that consensually we can agree on a lot of it, not everything, certainly not when it comes to value judgments and things like that. But as you meditate on whether these, trying to break down, find that partless particle and all those things, and everything starts to get a little looser, and the possibility of different interpretations, different projections, or mental labels, and then even visual labels to what you're seeing in matter becomes not so crazy an idea, right?
Right. And you know what, then what you said, looser, everything becomes looser.
Yeah.
Well, then we can actually loosen up our whole view
Yeah.
and our reactions and responses and actions, and not be so uptight.
And it really is about that self.
Yeah.
I think.
And I think loosening up can only help.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different kinds of people and different ways they express themselves, and if we loosen up about it, and what Claudia pointed out about the observer matters when looking at gases and partless particles and all that. The observer matters. It makes a difference.
Well, and I mean,
And actually, the observer sometimes gets it wrong. Like if you look at glass, most people would describe that as a solid. Through, not a good idea, but it is really a liquid when you define it sort of in physical terms.
Right. So and you can see where we can take that. You just in our emotional reactions to things and our beliefs and things like that. So I do see that it loosens things up.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good example too, and because in the Buddhist perception study, there's this thing called pramana or sema in Tibetan, which is like a correct perception, which kind of means that it's kind of like if others without a clouded mind, without a in a state of anger or something, they would agree with you, So you could say that I'm curious. I think Tibetans would say that seeing glass as a solid is a valid perception.
Mhm.
However, it is not the ultimate
Yes,
perception of that.
right.
Just like science would say, sure, we all can agree it looks and acts and functions in a solid way that we,
Right.
but
And that's
it's not
conventional.
ultimately right.
That's conventional existence.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But ultimately, it's not that.
It's interesting that Buddhism takes all of that into account. There is a, conventional way that we all agree things exist, but then there is an ultimate way
Yeah.
that they exist.
Something Don said made me remember this, that Don said something to the effect of, like, almost like, so what? So then what?
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that how many, if I think it's in the three principal, yeah, it's in the three principal aspects of the path text, the Tsongkhapa text, the verse that's basically about emptiness from perception, that the advice from Tsongkhapa is to contemplate it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Repeatedly is the word in the English translation we use. So the point is that Tsongkhapa's telling us to contemplate these things repeatedly. By contemplating this repeatedly over time, then suddenly the breakthrough realization, if you want to,
The light bulb.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
there is no spoon. Oh,
Yeah, that's one of my favorite couple lines. As he's saying, and I can't remember it exactly. I should, but
well, the next line is from the mere sight of dependent arising.
Yeah.
Comes the definite knowledge that completely cuts all modes of mental reference.
yeah,
Like,
and to contemplate it repeatedly until emptiness appears in appearance and appearance appears in emptiness, so that you begin to see, and
That's right. That's right.
that they are two sides to the same coin. That emptiness,
Mhm.
which again is the Heart Sutra essentially,
Right.
but which again, that's another good example. Like the first time you read the Heart Sutra,
oh
like,
yeah,
the emptiness of sound design. You're like, what does any of this mean? But the more you do it, you start to see that emptiness shows in appearance.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
appearance is
right.
right with
No,
that.
I know.
Right,
Right.
but you're right.
And that's
I'm
how-
just
yeah.
agreeing with you.
No,
That's all.
Right.
And that's a beautiful passage.
Yeah, and Tsongkhapa puts it so
Yeah,
succinctly,
so
right?
succinctly,
Yeah.
but that's so profound.
All right, let's move on to the I
Yeah.
and the five aggregates,
That's empty.
because we've talked about the five aggregates before.
Perfect example.
All right, so here's verse 82. The aggregates are not the self. They are not in it. It is not in them. Without them, it is not. It is not mixed with the aggregates like fire and fuel. Therefore, how could the self exist? So the I, or self, isn't the aggregates. It isn't inside them. It isn't outside them. And it isn't fused with them like fire fused with fuel. Without the aggregates, there's no I or me. So where could an inherently existing self be found? This verse challenges the idea of a solid, independent I by examining its supposed relationship to the five aggregates, which we've talked about: form, feeling, discrimination, mental conditioning, and consciousness. Form, feeling, discrimination, mental conditioning, and consciousness. These are the five aggregates that make up what we call, the person. If the I existed inherently, it would have to connect to the aggregates in one of five ways. And so here's the five ways it would have to. Well, here's the five ways that Nagarjuna is saying it doesn't connect. Or it does connect. I don't know. Oh, yeah, here it is. It's how they would have to connect. One, the I is the aggregates. Two, the aggregates are in the I, somehow in the I. Three, the I is in the aggregates. 4, the I exists without the aggregates. And 5, the I is mixed with the aggregates like fire and fuel, like when wood's on fire, the two are mixing, fire and fuel. But none of these work when you think about them carefully. The I does not neatly collapse into the body and mind, nor is it some separate thing that holds or owns the body and mind. It doesn't exist without them, and it isn't blended with them in some mystical way either. When we search for an inherently existing self or I, we can't find it. What we can say is that the I exists only as a label we apply to the collection of aggregates. It's conventionally real because we kind of all agree upon it, but not inherently so. So there are two kinds of self or I. And before we go into how the self relates to the 5 aggregates, it's important to recognize that Buddhist philosophy talks about 2 kinds of self or I. 1, the self or I that exists. This is the everyday person who thinks, acts, makes choices, experiences happiness, suffering, and creates karma. It is the ordinary I we refer to in daily life. This self exists, but only because we conceptually designate it. It's a label we place on the combination of body and mind. This ordinary self or I exists as a useful convention, but it can be misunderstood if self-grasping projects onto it an inherently fixed existence it doesn't actually have. And here's the second kind of self. This is the self or I that is negated by Buddhism. This is the imagined self that feels like it exists from its own side, solid, fixed, independent. The mind not only imagines such a self, but clings to it as if it were real. It's the, quote, inherently existing self that we instinctively grasp at. This self does not exist at all. When examined through reasoning, like Nagarjuna's analysis of the self and the aggregates, it disappears, like a mirage vanishes when you get closer. So the real self we live with is just the conventional I, a practical conceptual designation that works in our daily life. What's being denied or negated here is the inherent self, the idea of a self or I that exists independently on its own without relying on the aggregates. If a person really had an inherent, independent existence, then it would have to show up in a clear relationship to the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, discrimination, mental conditioning, and consciousness. Since those are the building blocks we use to designate a self, logically the self would have to exist in one of a few possible ways in relation to those aggregates. So here's the first that Nagarjuna analyzes. The aggregates are not the self. The person and the 5 aggregates are connected, but they're not inherently one and the same. If they were truly identical, then the I and the aggregates would have to be completely inseparable with no difference at all. But that doesn't hold up. For example, if the self really were the body, then every time you said I, you could just replace it with body. You'd say things like, the body got a new job. The body is stressed out about money. Right? But that's not how we use I.
Right.
We don't use I that way.
Yeah.
The self and the aggregates work together, but they're not literally the same thing. So that's his first point. Second, the aggregates are not in the self. like inside of it. Another possibility is that the self is like a container and the aggregates are inside it like yogurt inside of a bowl. It's a very Indian example, isn't it? If that were true, if that were true, then the I would be some kind of vessel. And the body, mind, and feelings would be stored within the I vessel. But when we look closely, we don't find any separate container self that holds the aggregates. There isn't a little I floating around somewhere that houses your body and mind. What we call the self only exists in dependence on the aggregates. It isn't something over and above them. Here's the third way that that Nagarjuna analyzes the self and the aggregates. The self is not in the aggregates. We might also think of it the other way around. Maybe the I is inside the aggregates, like a person living in a house. In this view, the body, mind, and other aggregates would be the house, and the self would be a separate tenant. And I think this is the way I always used to think of it.
Want my bread back.
That's how this is how I think I thought about it. But again, when we search, we can't find any such hidden I inside the body or mind. If the self were truly independent and living in the aggregates, then it should be findable as a separate entity. But no matter how closely we look, no tenant shows up. Then the fourth one. Without the aggregates, the self cannot exist. Think about it. Can we identify a person, an I, that does not have form, feeling, discrimination, mental conditioning, or consciousness? Can we identify an I such as that? Not really.
With what?
Not really. It's like,
How could we?
it's nothing. So without the aggregates, there's no basis for calling something or someone a person. This shows that the I depends entirely on the aggregates. If they're gone, the person's gone. The self doesn't stand on its own. And finally, the fifth way he analyzes the I and the aggregates. The self and the aggregates are not mixed like fire and fuel. Another theory says the self and the aggregates are somehow fused together like wood and fire. When wood burns, fire and wood seem inseparable. But this doesn't hold either. If the self and the aggregates were blended in that way, they would become indistinguishable, collapsing into the same thing. Yet we treat person and body-mind as related but not identical. They can't be said to be melted together into one inseparable essence. So Nagarjuna concludes that each possible relationship, the I as the same as the aggregates, as containing the aggregates, as being contained by the aggregates, as existing without them or fused with them, fails under analysis. So what's left? The self is not a solid, independent entity hiding somewhere. Instead, it exists dependently. We call someone a person because of the body, feelings, mind, and so on. But this I is only a designation we place on top of these processes. In other words, the I exists conventionally. We talk, act, we live as persons, but it doesn't exist inherently. There's no fixed, independent essence of me hiding in the aggregates. In Mahayana Buddhism, this is called the selflessness of persons. It is the heart of the middle way, avoiding the extremes of saying the self is absolutely real on its own, or that the self doesn't exist at all. It's real in a dependent conventional sense, not in an ultimate inherent way. So here are some group discussion topics that we can close all of this out with. Nagarjuna, this is about identity and change. Nagarjuna challenges the idea of a fixed I, suggesting that what we call a person is just a label placed on shifting parts, body, thoughts, memories. This raises deep questions about identity over time. So the question is, if the self is just a label on changing parts, body, thoughts, feelings, what does that mean for how we see personal identity over time?
I think this is why I freaked out years ago, and have still never quite gotten back to this depth of meditation on emptiness. Because years ago, in Kavita, you were there. When I, but
You raised it again with Geshe Nima.
Did I?
You've talked about
did
it.
I bring it up again?
Couple of
Yeah,
times.
this has been because I don't think I think it's a wall that I hit, and I don't think I've gotten past it, which is just it brought up a lot of fear for me personally to when I began to really deeply contemplate emptiness because it felt like I was dying. Like I would like and I'm sure it was some kind of ego death, I guess,
Sure, yeah.
but that was cold comfort. Because
What does it replace it?
because I guess I get to a point of
Once you got in the fetal position.
yeah, as I get in and curl up. No, just that yeah, because I think we all have that experience of like, yeah, we're getting older, but like I'm still that kid I was when I was 6 or 7 or 8. Like I identify still with that. I don't feel like I have really changed that much over all these years. I mean, sure, circumstantially,
I hear ya.
physically, but like I, and if that I does not exist in the way I think it does, there's this, which I spent at a certain point in my meditation, I spent a lot of time trying to dig into that, and it frightened me because I began to feel like that was not there would be no continuity to it. That when this goes away, I just cease to exist, and that was scary. It was very scary to me, and which I'm sure is me clinging, but in terms of how I think I began to sense that, oh, this is all just kind of it's sort of like when a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound and no one's there to sound? It's kind of like, well, what tree? What if there's no one there to perceive it? It doesn't exist. Like there is no tree, there's no sound. So are we like that? In this, am I like that? If there's no aggregates left, no one to perceive that, what does I even mean? And to so I don't know, I'm just sharing again. I had a personal experience of trying to struggle with that, and it brought up fear, and the monk kind of giggled when I told him. It was like, keep meditating. But it's been a struggle for me because there's a fear that it brings up, and I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, so are you afraid more, I mean, maybe I shouldn't ask the. So, do you believe that the aggregates are not independent entities? Like the consciousness, form, perception?
It's a good question. Do I think that they are not?
I mean, what I hear from you
Yeah,
is that you are attached to your
aggregates. Yeah,
aggregates
Yeah.
in a way that Buddhism says is not correct.
yeah.
Because you're-
Very much so.
Because you're
Yeah.
attached to that.
You're hearing that correct.
Your fear.
You fear,
Yeah,
you fear the loss of those aggregates.
yeah,
On the other hand, Buddhism has constantly said that
Yeah.
is an incorrect interpretation.
Right.
And it's also said that your subtle consciousness is thought to move from lifetime to lifetime.
Right.
yeah,
And so therefore, a piece of who you have always been and who you are now will continue to move on and evolve. in future lives. It won't be the same Brian Bales, it won't be
Right.
the same vessel.
Right.
And then the other thing I would say is that it seems to me that there are a lot of people in this world who do a lot of things to try to beat the
Yeah.
inevitable.
Right.
But you know, when
Yeah.
you think about Tsongkhapa's you just brought it up.
Three principal
Three
aspects.
principal aspects of the path, you know, it's aging, and it's birth, aging, sickness, death. You
Yeah.
cannot escape it.
Right. Right.
And everybody does all these things to try to escape it.
Yeah.
Let's live longer and let's live longer. And it's just, you know, it's kind of a futile effort because at the end of the day, death will come for all of us, or death in this particular vessel will come for all of us. And the key is, what do you do while you're here in that vessel?
Yeah.
And is maximize what you can do with the vessel you have while you have that vessel. So I guess, given how much you've been, you know, practicing and thinking and meditating and studying Buddhism, I guess the fundamental question I had is that, you know, one of the basic tenets is that
Yeah.
there is nothing that exists independently. The aggregates are not
Right.
independent
Yeah.
entities, but you still think of them as an independent entity, and you as I as an independent entity.
Yeah. I mean, I'll
The
freely admit,
the other thing I would say,
and it's ignorant. It's that is ignorant grasping. I freely admit. I guess that just when you
Well,
ask
shows how strong that is, though.
yeah, when you asked how does it change your perception of identity, for me it highlighted how strongly I am attached
Right.
to that. Maybe
yeah, I
that's
think
what
the
you
other
say.
thing that I was going to say earlier I didn't, but
Uh-huh.
you know, I think we live as a human species for the most part with fear as an animating emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to drive somebody to do something, create fear and anxiety in that population, that individual, or that. You look at what's happening in Texas now University. Nobody wants to say a damn word.
Yeah.
Because they're way afraid of losing their jobs and
Yeah.
you know, getting fired or whatever. I mean, it's.
Yep.
So I think, and this is not just now, but I mean,
Yeah.
I think this has been. You look at our civilization since the beginning of time. Individuals have used fear to control others, and have
Absolutely.
used that fear, and the fear becomes a habituation,
Yeah.
and we carry that fear from lifetime to lifetime,
Mm.
or generation to generation, or whatever.
Right,
you wanna say.
right.
So it's a really hard thing to escape because now we have a structure where we have social media that is basically built upon
Yeah.
fear
Framing
and getting people to click on fear, and so it's very hard to escape that.
Commercials are based on
Yeah.
riling you up
Um,
to buy a product or
something kind of out of our Buddhist realm that has is an interesting thing for me to think about related to this losing the I as I know it.
Yeah.
And it relates to the reincarnation of Geshe, of Lama Yeshe.
Yeah.
So Lama Yeshe
Mhm.
passed away, and it is said that his continuum
Right.
was reborn as a guy now called Tenzin.
so
Yeah. So it's all really great to say, oh yeah, Lama's up, Lama Yeshe's back, and he's Tenzin's uncle.
Yeah.
So here's my point, actually, because I asked Venerable Robina when she was here, I said, do you notice, is there anything about Lama Oso that reminds you of Lama Yeshe?
Yeah.
And she said, there was absolutely nothing.
keep processing.
So the reason I'm sharing this is because I'm kind of trying to dispel our hope that somehow, nevertheless, we are going to, continue in the way we like.
Yeah,
are familiar with.
There's something about that that's frightening to me in a way. And on the other hand, you hear stories, many stories, of individuals, recognized or not, as having memories of their past life.
I'm not saying Lama Oso doesn't. I'm just saying for Venerable Rabina.
Yeah, well, I guess those are two
love
different things. Yeah,
But
but you're right. Like, there's something about that does I mean,
It's
again, I'm
scary.
admitting my grasping.
No, not,
by
it
saying
scares
that.
me too.
It scares me.
It's like,
And
this is kind of scary.
I think most of us have a little trepidation about dying, right? And what's
I,
coming.
I've always had a
I'm here
weirdly
to put something in the
obsessive
chat.
fear. I don't know.
This is
A
from,
bad place before it came.
Don's
here,
looking
so-
forward to dying. I want to hear your how are you?
Sorry.
Well, let's hear why he's looking.
I
Forward
have
to it.
been with enough people that have died
Yeah.
with me holding their hand. And I will tell you that sometimes getting there can be a pretty difficult trip. But the beauty of it is that there is nothing there. You know, that mind stream goes on. You know, I don't know what happens, but it goes on.
What do you mean by there is nothing there?
When the body, it's just parts.
Oh, yes, yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You know,
All of a
that's
sudden,
just holding
it's
the whole
just-
thing up. You know, it is kind of like Frankenstein's, you know, kind of put together. And as I say, it's a miracle that we exist in that form. You know, it could have been a lot simpler.
Sure.
You know,
Here's
Yeah,
a little
I
book,
guess the whole
but it
subtle,
is.
the whole subtle consciousness.
I'm gonna text
thing
you
is-
something,
I still,
okay?
yeah, the whole subtle consciousness and what it is and how it continues is, yeah, I still struggling with a lot
I
of
think,
that.
I asked about this before. Because, I have my own doubts about reincarnation.
Right.
Just in general. Tracy used to always say the same thing you said, well, there's this guy, the kid is 5 years old, and we're
Yeah,
flying
yeah.
into the Bermuda Triangle or World War II plane and
Right.
describe, blah, 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 blah.
And there are a lot of stories.
I think I've heard that story.
And but I say, so what's the evidence for reincarnation? And it's the same concept as big endless time. What's there's no
Yeah.
necessarily positive evidence that it exists, but you use a negative approach to say, well, it's the only thing that makes sense at the end of the day,
Yeah,
because otherwise you can't explain anything.
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, we're gonna have to cut it because Lee had just
Yeah.
put a little clock up there and says it's time. It's past time. It is past time. So-
Sorry.
Would you do me a favor and lead the dedication
Sure.
in whatever way you like?
Uh,
I feel moved.
You just reminded me of my uncle. We'd ask him he's a colonel, full bird colonel. We'd ask him to lead graves and he'd go, "Yay, God." I was like, his Catholic
Good
mother would
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
give him a
that
hard
one.
time. Anyway,
Obvious.
all right. All right, we'll just do the English and the final dedication. In all my lives, may I not be separated from true lamas, and so enjoy the splendor of Dharma, fully perfecting the virtues of levels and paths, may I speedily attain the state of Vajradhara.
Thank you.
Yay, Buddha!
Yay, Buddha.
All right, great. I'm pleased with the whole discussion thing, so we will continue with that.
Before we say adios to the Zooms, anybody
Yeah.
out there?
Anybody have?
Now that we're in our informal post-session session? No?
Claudia, what do you have to
Good to
say?
see you.
Nothing, just bye, thank you.
Okay, Lee's unmuted, so wait.
Oh, no, does Lee have something to say?
Oh, I was just going to say earlier when we were talking about how we view ourselves, a thought that came up was, how you see people you haven't seen in a long time or someone you used to know and you think, oh, they really look older.
Yeah.
And then you realize you're actually older than they are,
Yeah.
but you don't see yourself that way. You see
Yeah.
yourself as your,
Yeah.
6-year-old spirit person you used to be. So.
Yeah.
Until we see a random photograph taken by somebody else and go, oh my God.
Who is that person?
Okay, so
Thank you. Good discussion.
I'm gonna stop the recording.